All right, I want to talk about one of my favorite cameras. I want to talk about the Leica Q2 and how this camera has changed my relationship with photography over the last year. I bought this camera last year off of Facebook Marketplace while I was in Los Angeles. I wasn't really sure I could afford it, but I felt compelled to go ahead and take the risk and get this camera because it was calling out to me. Before that, I had borrowed a friend's Q2. And the context of that is I was going to Portugal for a client shoot, but the first 5 days I was just taking a vacation and I wasn't planning on shooting anything. And a friend of mine was like, I'm gonna let you borrow this camera and you can just use it if you want to, but I want to give it to you to borrow to see how you feel about it and maybe you'll enjoy using it. This was at a time where I was feeling really uninspired with photography. I wasn't creating personal work and I was just burnt out and a little burdened from some of the other work I was doing. Just nothing creatively was exciting me anymore. And I was even a little reluctant and hesitant to take this camera with me because I didn't really feel the desire to take photos. But I took it with me and I slowly started to use it. As I was out just going to cafes and spending time on my vacation. And after a few days, I was like, wait a minute, I really like taking photos again. And I really like this camera. And part of it is just the size of it, right? Like it was so much easier to carry around than a whole mirrorless camera or DSLR setup with like a few lenses. Like the fixed lens made it easy to just show up and shoot. So it got me taking photos, just kind of being out and about. I didn't have to lug anything else with me. It's not that heavy. And it actually got me out taking photos. I think that has been the biggest benefit of this so far, right? I would have just gone that whole 5 or 6 days with just taking photos on my iPhone and I would have never posted them anywhere. They wouldn't show up in my portfolio. It would have just been like really normal photos. But after having this for a couple days, I started to see things that were catching my eye and I started noticing things a little differently because I was excited to try this camera and take photos. So that excitement kind of just kept growing and growing as I was in Portugal. And then once it came time for the client shoot, I was shooting on that just as much as I was my R5. I was going back and forth between the two. And that was really when I saw the value of this camera, right? Like it could be for my personal work and just to carry around and document my life, but I could also bring this on client shoots and deliver assets to them that are really valuable and really good. So I was like, okay, there's something to this. I was at a time where I actually could not afford it. And I got back from Portugal and I was like, okay, like I need to consider finding a way to get one of these eventually. And probably 6 or 7 months later, I was able to afford one. And it was a bit of a risk financially, but I really felt compelled to take it. And since then, like I went to Japan for 10 days and this was the only camera that I brought with me. Every photo that I took in Japan was on this. And 28 millimeters is not my go-to focal length at all, but I've come to really love this. There's enough data in the file for me to crop, so I've been able to play around with different compositions in post, so that has been really nice. But literally, this camera resurrected my desire and excitement to take photographs. I was feeling so burnt out, I was feeling so uninspired, and I didn't know what to do. I went to Japan and I got some images. There's one right there. Like I took that photo on that camera, and I have probably 20 other photos that I like would have wanted to print from that trip to put up somewhere in my house or to just set on the floor. And that was just kind of another moment where I was like, there's something about this camera that is different and I don't know what it is. Like, yeah, the files are really nice and the way they edit feels a little different. I don't know if that's like just me making something up in my head, right? But there's something about the way that these photos turn out that feel a little bit more exciting for me. And I think we can probably sit here and debate, that gear matters or it doesn't, but I think gear does matter for everybody, but it just matters in a different regard, right? So like this matters to me because it gets me excited to go out and take photos. I'll just bring this to a cafe with my girlfriend and take photos of our morning or when we go to the park with our dogs or whatever it is. So I'm shooting a lot more and the build quality of it is really nice. And I don't know, like it's a tool, but it's a really strong and important tool for me. And like The ability to shoot on macro is a really nice addition too, because I'm able to get these details, even though I only have one lens and I am a little bit limited with my composition. Like, I can at least really get close to something and add more context to a set of images with these macro shots. I would say I use it pretty often. This camera has really changed my relationship with photography. I'm bringing this camera with me pretty much everywhere I go, whether I'm going on a trip somewhere, I'm going to a client shoot, or I'm just going to hang out with some friends. It's kind of a staple, and it really feels like it's bridging this gap between how I show up for my client work and how I show up for myself, right? Like, I feel like this is a little bit more of an extension of just how I see things, and I feel less burdened by picking this up, and I feel less, I don't know, I just feel like it's so much more natural to pick this thing up and just start taking photos of it. I think a lot of it has to do with not having to make a decision on the lens. I think a lot of it has to do with the size of the camera. So it's really just bridging that gap too on these client shoots, which has become invaluable. And I've delivered a lot of photos from this camera to clients that they've ended up using in campaigns. This is something I've been talking about a lot lately, but I think it has shown me how important curiosity is, and even curiosity with our gear as photographers or filmmakers or whatever it is. I think getting out and just trying something new is going to allow us to have that beginner's mindset. And a lot of people talk about how good a beginner's mindset is, and I think for me, feeling curious again and feeling like a student is just allowing me to get out of my own way, and it's just fun again. So this camera has really opened up my eyes to getting back into shooting more film, and started shooting medium format again, and some Super 8, and trying to be more open to all these different avenues and all these different mediums that I have at my disposal. I think for me, I can't just solely rely on like my mirrorless R5 to do everything I need it to do. I'm just the type of person that needs to switch it up, and maybe like I see something and I'm like, oh, this is a project or this is a photo that I want to take with my R5, or you know what, I really see these photos in 35mm film, or whatever the case is. And it just allows me to not get too stale and too stagnant with my work and my creativity, and it keeps things fresh for me. And without getting this camera and without having that experience in Portugal, I don't know where I would still be. Maybe I'd be burnt out, maybe I would have quit. Maybe I would have come around to this eventually, but I've just been so excited. And it's even inspired me to like reconsider my main camera setup, right? So I rented a GFX recently to see if that was something I wanted to do. And spoiler alert, it's something I want to do. That camera felt like that camera did the same thing for me as the Q2 did for me last year. So I think eventually like I would hit a dead end with trying all these different things, but I don't think that's the point, right? Is to like constantly upgrade and get something new. I think it's a matter of having different tools and knowing how and when to use them. And as an artist, I think it's really important to challenge ourselves to get outside of our comfort zones, right? I think I've picked up my R5 and I've taken so many photos on it. I just looked at the shutter count yesterday and it was 200,000. And so I'm just so familiar with that camera, and I know what to expect from my lenses. I know what to expect from the images, and it just got boring for me at a certain point. So yeah, I don't know. I think I have just taken so many of my favorite images recently on this camera. And I'm not saying that everybody needs to go out and get a Leica Q2 to take images that you're happy with, but I think you need to find your version of this, because this has been invaluable for me. And it has allowed me to just put myself in situations to take photos that I would have otherwise never have taken. And also because of that, it's allowed me to connect with people, right? Like when I was in Japan, I took some photos of some baristas and I was like, here are these photos. And I ended up having a really nice conversation with them. I did the same thing in Los Angeles a couple months ago. I went to a new coffee shop and I was the only one in there. I was like, hey, can I shoot some photos of you making my coffee and I'll give them to you? And he was like, yeah, sounds great. And I really love how those turned out. And it's also become really awesome to have this when I'm directing, right? When I'm on a set and I'm not necessarily there to take photos, but I still see things that I want to capture and I want to shoot some behind the scenes or whatever the case may be. Like, that's so easy to just throw around my shoulder at all times and just take a photo when something presents itself to me. So I love it. I really can't advocate for trying out new gear as much as you can, or just trying something different. Could be anything. I have so many photos that I've taken on this camera that I would probably consider to be my favorite photos. I've shot probably 95% of my personal work on this camera in the last year to year and a half, and the remainder of that 5% is probably 4% film photography and 1% some sort of mirrorless camera like the R5. But it's been really exciting. I'm out taking photos more, I'm trying new gear, and I just really love it. I don't have anything negative to say about this camera. The Q2 has really reconnected me with my artist spirit. I feel creatively alive again. I feel really inspired to get out and make things. I feel inspired to even like come up with ideas, and I'm seeing things differently, and I'm just noticing so many more details that I think I was passing up for so long because I was feeling so uninspired. So when I pick up this camera, like on my commercial shoots, it bridges that gap between the like pragmatic Jacob and the artistic Jacob. And it's such a nice combination. You know, I would feel really hesitant to deliver anything if it wasn't off of my R5 or my main camera setup. I don't know really where that came from. It just felt like I was being hired to do something, and they all needed to come from this like very serious camera setup. And I'd completely made that up and put up a roadblock for myself, and I don't do that anymore because of this camera. Even if I don't end up using it, it kind of guides me through that creative problem solving that we all face when trying to compose and create photographs. So it's just a nice little tool to have in the toolbox in moments like that, but it's also a really powerful tool to have to document my life. And I really do love traveling. So it's something that I've really liked to do for a long time, and unless I feel the desire to shoot film, this is going to be the only camera I bring on trips with me going forward. Like I don't really feel a need for anything else. You know, at this point I've been really curious about the Q3 43. That has been out for a little bit now, just because I tend to like a little bit more compression in my images, and I think 43mm would be interesting. I don't think I would end up loving it. I've really come to love the 28, but I'm curious to try it. So I might rent it here in the near future for a trip or for something. But I think this camera is going to be in my camera bag for a very long time. I think it's going to be the camera that I bring on all of my trips, and I think it's going to be a camera that is on every set with me going forward. I'm really curious to hear if you have any pieces of gear that have done something similar for you, that have like reignited that spark and that creativity and that love for photography after feeling burnt out. I know I'm not the only one that deals with burnout. I know we all kind of deal with it at some point. So I've really just enjoyed talking with people about how they've gotten out of it and kind of what those things have been that have helped them get out of it. So I look forward to hearing some of these from you guys. Thank you for being here with me today. If any of these images stood out to you more than the others, I would love to know what you thought in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.